Good morning, everyone. We are going to be solving radical equations today in Algebra 1. This is Algebra 1 for 6th and 7th periods. Hello, everyone. Blake, Alyssa, either Kelly or Travis. How are y'all? I'm going to wait for a few more people to get on, then we'll get busy. I'm going to try to get everything set up. So y'all just hang tight. All right, let's see. First of all, by now, everyone should have completed 4 lessons, EE 1, 2, 4, and 5, and taken the quiz. If you didn't see the quiz, I left a little 5-problem quiz on Teams. And once you take that, it shows immediately your score, and it shows me that you've taken it and what your score is. So y'all make sure you take that. Take it today if you haven't taken it yet. Alright, so far we have learned how to simplify radicals. We've added them and subtract them. We've multiplied them. And now this is our last lesson on square roots, and that's solving square root equations, or solving equations that have the square root symbol in there. And I just wrote down some things here. You can go back later and if you look at the video again and see what it says. You don't have to write that down. I just want to go over with you the process of solving an equation that has a square root symbol in it. First of all, it's the 14th. Our goal is to solve equations that have a square root symbol. So something like this. The square root of x equals 5. Now what that means is that you're trying to find out what number goes in here in place of x, so that when you take the square root of it, you get 5 for your answer. Now that, of course, hopefully everybody knows that's 25. The answer is 25, because when you put a 25 right here in for x and you take the square root of 25, 5 is the answer. But you need to know the process of how to get that answer, because, of course, it's not going to be quite that simple of an equation every time. Okay, so here, this tells you to get x by itself, which is what you always want to do when you're solving an equation. You need to undo the operation that's currently being done to x. So we want to undo that square root. To undo the square root, you do the opposite operation, which is squaring it. Alright, so right here, let's just take this equation. In order to get this x by itself, we want to get rid of the square root symbol. And in order to get rid of the square root symbol, you do the opposite operation, which is squaring it. Because whenever you square the square root symbol, we did some of these kind of problems when we were doing the multiplication lesson. The little 2 on the outside just makes that square root symbol disappear, and you're left with the x, or whatever's underneath that square root symbol. Now y'all know when you have an equation, if you do something to one side, you've got to do it to the other side. So we have to square this left side, which means we've got to square the right side. And when you square 5, you get 25, and that is your answer. So that is the process of what we're going to be doing today, basically. You square both sides to get that x by itself. Now there's going to be a little bit more work involved depending on how the problem starts out, but that's the whole idea of what we're going to be doing. All right, so are y'all ready to get started on our examples? Let me look and make sure that it's clear today. Okay, I think y'all can see that. Okay, on example 1, we're going to solve the square root of n equals 9. So what y'all should look for when you're doing these, I'm starting out with really easy ones, but what you should look for is to make sure that there's no numbers on the outside of your square root symbol that's on that same side as your equal sign. So look over here on the left side and make sure there's no numbers that are on the outside either being added or subtracted or multiplied by the square root of n. Once you've just got your square root symbol and whatever's under it on that left side, you're ready to square both sides. Alright, so we're going to try to solve for n, which means we've got to square this left side. And then we're going to square the right side, because you have to do the same thing to both sides. When you square the square root symbol, it just makes the square root symbol go away, and you're left with n. And you square the right side and you get 81. 9 times 9 is 81. And that is your answer. Easy, right? I believe solving these equations will be easier for you than any of the other stuff that you did with radicals. If you're good at solving equations. Hopefully you're good at solving equations. Alright, example 2. I just switched up the square root symbol so you wouldn't get used to seeing it on one side. You did the same thing. Because you have no other numbers outside of that square root symbol on this side with the square root, you're ready to square both sides. Okay, so we're going to square the right side to get x by itself, which means we've got to square this left side. Alright, so we know when you square the square root of x, you're just left with what's under there, which is x. When you square 15, that's 15 times 15. Use a calculator if you have to. But that's one of those I told y'all, I think, to memorize whenever we were doing perfect squares. 15 to the second power is 225, and that's your answer. Oh no. Why does it go out with my Algebra 1? It's blurry. It never does this with my other classes. I'm going to stop for a minute and see if I can fix this. Who's still with me? Are y'all still there, or did you get cut off? Oh, that's better now, I think. Alright, so y'all can see that now? Were you able to see, well, we've only done 2 examples. Look back at those. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention when it went blurry. So make sure that you can see how to do those 2 examples. We had to square both sides on this example 2. 15 times 15 is 225. Alright, so example 3. We have 1/12 fraction equals the square root of n. So we are ready to square both sides because there's no other number on the outside of the square root symbol. So we are ready to square both sides. I'm going to square the right side to make my square root symbol disappear, and that leaves me with n. Now when you square this fraction, I'm going to put parentheses around the whole fraction because you've got to square both numbers. Because what you're doing is squaring 1/12. So that's 1/12 times 1/12, which means 1 times 1 on top. And then on bottom, it's 12 times 12, which is 144. And that is your answer, 1 over 144. Alright, are y'all with me? You understand that? We're going to stick with two more examples that are, quite simple. And then we're going to move on example 6 to some that require just a little bit more work. It's still pretty easy, though. Oh, there's Brian Brown. Good morning, Brian. Okay, so here we have the square root of negative k equals 0.7. So I'm going to square both sides. Remember, when you square this left side, no matter if there's a negative or whatever's in there, you're going to be left with whatever that is in there. So when you square the square root symbol, it just makes it go away, and you're left with negative k. And then you've got to square 0.7. Okay, now when you square 0.7, I'm just going to show it right here. 0.7 times 0.7. You can do that on the calculator. But 7 times 7 is 49. And then you've got two numbers behind the decimal, so you have to move the decimal over 2 places to the left from the end, and you get 0.49. So 0.7 times 0.7 is 0.49. And then because you have this negative left here, you've got to divide by that negative symbol, which just transfers the negative symbol over to the 0.49. And you get k equals negative 0.49. And that is your answer. Let me make sure it's still clear. I think it's still clear. Alright, we're ready to do this last one on this page. Then there's more. Again, we're going to square both sides to find out what y is. Y is under my square root symbol, and we want to get y by itself. So we have to square this right side to make the square root symbol disappear. And so we're left with just the 8y that's under the square root symbol. And then you've got to square, you've got to square the left side, 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, and that's 16. Now this one's different than the others because we've got to get y by itself, and y is not by itself yet. So now you just have a regular one-step equation to solve for y. You've got to divide by 8. So we divide both sides by 8. Those 8s cancel, and you get 16 divided by 8, which is 2. So y equals 2, and that's your answer. Now, if you wanted to check to make sure your answer's correct, go back to your original problem, which was 4 equals the square root of 8y, and substitute the 2 in place of your y. So 8y is 8 times 2. Well, look at what 8 times 2 is. It's 16. And the square root of 16 is 4. So that lets you know that you got the right answer. You don't have to do this. That's just a check to let you know if you got your right answer. Alright, let's move on now to example 6. Those are the ones that you just go ahead and square both sides to begin with. Actually, we have another one that's like that too. Alright, example 6. Let me move this up. Okay, example 6. If you'll look, there's going to be a little bit more work to this one, just like there was to example 5. But you're still ready to go ahead and square both sides. And what I mean by that, if you'll just take a look for a minute, look at example 6. And then look at example 7 and example 8. Whenever I say that you're ready to square both sides, it's like this one where you don't have any numbers on the outside of your square root symbol. Like on example 7, you've got this -1 that's not under your square root. It's on the outside. On this one, you've got the -13 that's on the outside. So on these problems, starting with number 7, you're not going to be ready to square both sides at the beginning. Problems that we've done already, plus one like this, where there's no numbers on the outside, you're ready to go ahead and square both sides. So let's square this left side because that's where p is, and we want to get p by itself. So remember, when you square the square root symbol, it disappears, and you're left with p plus 5. You're left with everything that's under the square root symbol. And now you want to square the right side. 8 squared is 8 times 8, and that's 64. Okay, so now you've still got to get p by itself, so you've got to solve that one-step equation by subtracting, this time, your 5 on both sides. These 5s cancel out. Plus 5 minus 5 are exact opposite, so they cancel out. And you get p equals 64 minus 5 is 59. And that is your answer. Good morning, Gage. Anybody have any questions? Are y'all good? If you're good, just kind of, I guess, just give a thumbs up if everybody's ready to move on. I wish I could see y'all's reactions like immediately instead of delayed. Okay, example 7. Right here we have this -1 on the outside of your square root symbol. So we have to start off by moving that. We have to move everything away to the other side of our equation. Move it away from the square root symbol. So remember, when you're solving an equation, if you've got numbers on the outside, you solve it. You start by solving it just like you would if there was no square root around the x. Just like it was -1 plus x equals 9. So you want to get rid of this -1 by adding +1. And you've got to do that to both sides of your equal sign. So the -1 and the +1 cancel out. You're left with your square root of x. And now you add your 9 plus 1, which is 10. Now you're to the point of, just like in example 1, you're ready to square both sides. So when you square this left side, you get x. And when you square the right side, 10 times 10 is 100. So your answer is 100. Okay, I'm going to move on now to example 8. I'm going to see if I can zoom in just a little. Okay. On example 8, now be careful because here they've moved, or I've moved, the square root symbol over to the right side. So you want your eye to always go to where the square root symbol is. And then you look and there's a number on the outside of that square root symbol that we've got to get rid of. Because remember, we're trying to move everything away from h. We're trying to get h by itself. So this -13 has to disappear from this side. To make it disappear, we come under it and say plus 13, so it'll cancel out. That means we've got to do the same exact thing to the left side under our 7. 7 plus 13 is 20. These 13s canceled out. And we're left with our square root symbol, which is the square root of -17 plus h. Alright, so now we're ready to get our h by itself by squaring both sides. So we're going to square this right side, and we're going to square the left side. 20 times 20 is 400. And when you square the square root symbol, it disappears, and you're left with -17 plus h. And I'm about to run out of room, so I'm just going to, I think from here y'all know that I'm going to add 17 to both sides. So when I add 17 to this side, it disappears, and you're left with h. And then I've got to add 17 to the left side. 400 plus 17 is 417. And that is my answer. That one required a little bit more work, so I'm going to stop for just a second before I do this last one and see if anyone has any questions. Is it still frozen? Because it's not frozen on my end. I can't. Is it freezing for all of you? If it's frozen, still. Maybe it's just, hopefully it's on your end, Alyssa and Kelly. And hopefully if you miss some parts, it'll be on the video. I'll go back and check the video when this is over. And if you missed some of the audio that you need, I'll redo it and then post it to YouTube. Alright, example 9. I would let y'all try this one, except there's one thing on this one that is different from all the other examples, and it's the number that's in front of our square root symbol. Hopefully some of you will know what to do with that. I'm going to give you a chance to tell me what to do with it in just a minute. So we're going to take this 74. Well, first of all, let's look at the whole equation. You've got 74 minus 53 on the square root of f equals negative 32. So we've got two things on the outside of our square root symbol that we've got to get away from f. You want to start with this one that's being added or subtracted. The one that's not attached to the f, we want to start with that. So we're going to subtract 74 to make that go away. That means we've got to subtract 74 over on the right side. Okay, so these 74s cancel out, and you're left with negative 53 on the square root of f. On the right side, we've got to add these because they've both got negatives. Negative 32 and negative 74 makes negative 106. Now, anybody want to tell me what you think we do with this negative 53 that's in front of the square root of f? You can just type in the operation that you think we do. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Anybody have a guess? What operation to do with that 53? Think about this. This is negative 53 times the square root of f. That's what that means. So if that's negative 53 times the square root of f, what do you think we do with that negative 53? It's not add, Blake. Good try, but it's not add. Yes, we divide. So we're going to divide by negative 53 because we want those 53s to cancel out. See, there's no plus or minus in between that negative 53 and the square root. So that's why you don't add it or subtract it. It's attached to it, which means multiplication. We got to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So we got to divide both sides by negative 53. These negative 53s will cancel, and you get the square root of f equals positive 2. 106 divided by 53 is 2. A negative over a negative is a positive. And now you just square both sides. So we're going to square the left side to get f. We're going to square the right side to get the answer, which is 4. F equals 4. And that's the hardest one. And I went through all your IXL problems. I think you only have maybe one that's like this. That'll get you up to your 80 that you've got to get to. So, that's what I'm doing now. Whenever I'm doing your examples, I'm going through and I'm working your IXL actually by myself and putting in problems like you'll have in the examples. And there was one of these. And once I did one of these, it got me up to my 80. So that you should be good. And you do have to get, I didn't write it down right here, you have to get a SMART score of 80. So if you'll look, your assignment, another IXL, Algebra 1, make sure you skip to the F's. We're going to do FF4. We're through with the EEs, and now we're doing FF4. SMART score of 80. And then I just jotted down here something to kind of make sure that you can kind of check off the assignments we've had. At this point, you should have already done EE1, 2, 4, 5, a quiz, and now FF4. I'm not able to put these in yet into iNow because Ms. Johnson told us to wait about putting grades in until they've got everything set up right on iNow. So I haven't put anything in, but I'm going to. And these are the assignments you should have done, plus this quiz. I'm going to be doing another live lesson for y'all on Thursday. And then we're going to be doing another video call, which I hope more people join this time. I'll do the video call on Teams because not everybody has Skype. So I'll be doing it on Teams on Friday at 11 o'clock for this class. Well, actually, for 6th period it's 11, and for 7th period it's later. I'm not sure about 7th period what time it is. I think it may be 1, but I'll let y'all know. Anyone have any questions? You want to type in any questions before we go? Blake, you can take away the 10 on your IXL on any lesson we do. So that's up to you. Once you start working this, if this is really easy for you, I would go ahead and try to get the 80 and save it for something that's not as easy. Or if you want to, you can do it on this and just get a 70. That's just up to you. And I'm going to be doing contest, something to just try to make it a little bit interesting. Some type of other contest I'll do later for more things like this. I may be giving some contests where you can earn a 100 on your quiz, bonus points on quizzes, that kind of stuff. Any other questions? Yes, I can give you still, Alyssa, I can still give you bonus points for getting to 100. Anyway, if you get to 100, that'll be 10 bonus points. Alright, I think I'm going to sign off now, and y'all try to go do your IXL. And then have a good afternoon. See y'all later. Bye.